While the whole world was watching the horrifying events unfolding on September 11, 2001 in New York, another much quieter crime took place in the luxurious California hotel room. All eyes were glued to television screens, so no one noticed how 52-year-old Larry McNabb, a prominent lawyer who had come to the equestrian competition with his wife and friends, disappeared without a trace. His relatives were so consumed by the events happening thousands of kilometers away from them that they didn't even recognize how Larry was slowly dying in agony from the poison spreading through his body. Larry McNabney was an outstanding individual. Perhaps it was due to his high-profile cases or the television commercials where he rode horses and wore a cowboy hat, earning him the nickname Marlboro. Regardless, everyone knew about Larry McNabney, and clients lined up to seek his counsel. The attorney lived in Reno, Nevada, but practiced in Las Vegas as well, amassing a fortune over the years. Of course, he had his own problems, including alcohol abuse, but if you didn't know about his addiction, it seemed like he had achieved everything a person could dream of, especially after his encounter with Elisa Redelsberger. Eliza grew up in an affluent family in Florida. She was a vivacious and adventurous child with a deep love for horses, always being the center of attention. Joining the cheerleading team secured her popularity in school, and her IQ score of 140 placed her at the top of her class. However, Eliza dreamed of adventures more than education, so after graduating from school, she headed to the bright lights of Las Vegas. With her charming appearance and gentle voice, it was impossible to resist her. And she proved it once again on a hot July day in 1995 when she entered Larry McNabb's law firm. A smart, self-assured 29-year-old woman accustomed to men doing whatever she wanted. She declared to the wealthy 46-year-old lawyer that she wanted to become his office manager. Whether it was due to her assertiveness or her appearance, he hired her the same day. Larry, who was 17 years her senior, had been married 4 times. 6 months after their meeting, Elisa turned 30. Every morning, the spouses would drive out of their mansion in a new Jaguar belonging to the young wife. They spent the entire day working together in the office. Evenings were spent in restaurants where Larry ordered only the finest wines. Friends rejoiced at Larry's good fortune and the presence of a young woman who adored him. It was a fairy tale that could only come true in Vegas. However, for Larry's 2 adult children, Elisa was no Cinderella. She turned out to be a wicked stepmother, driving a wedge between them and their father. Moreover, the family's close friends were puzzled by the mystery that surrounded Elisa. You would ask her where she went to school, and suddenly you'd find yourself talking about skiing. Something just wasn't right, they recalled. Not to mention that while claiming to be the daughter of a wealthy Cuban businessman, she knew only 2 phrases in Spanish. Nevertheless, Elisa had no time to worry about her husband's children or the family's friends. Shopping awaited her. The girl loved to spend money, and she also had a passion for one of the most expensive sports horseback riding, which she introduced to her husband. Larry became just as passionate about it as Elisa. Soon, the spouses acquired their own stable. Overall, the McNabneys were the perfect pair. He earned a fortune as a lawyer, and she spent that fortune on designer clothes, jewelry, and Jaguars. Then, unexpectedly, in December 1995, a financial audit revealed that $140,000 of clients' funds had gone missing from the trust account. Larry was forced to cover the loss with his own money, but that wasn't the worst part. He lost his license, which meant he could no longer practice law in the state of Nevada. Because of this, McNabney headed west to California. They settled into a beautiful home in the Sacramento area. From the second floor of their new mansion, they had a view of golf courses and vineyards. Larry was pleased that he could afford the finest local wines. To make a name for himself, Larry began advertising his law firm. In Vegas, people had gone crazy over his suit, which was reminiscent of the Marlboro Man. He believed the same style would catch on in the new city, and he was right. His commercials became a sensation among the local community. The phone rang incessantly. His practice quickly became as successful as his previous one because McNabney was truly an excellent lawyer who knew his craft. The practice thrived, and Larry hired a student named Sarah Dutra as his secretary. Elisa and Sarah quickly became friends. They shared a common passion, shopping at the finest boutiques where they bought matching items. Soon, the 2 girls became inseparable. They both had an interest in horse racing and could often be found at the racetrack. And so, on September 10, 2001, McNabney invited Sarah to Los Angeles for another show. The girls spent the morning shopping and then went to cheer for Larry, who was personally participating in a horse race. They enthusiastically supported the man from the stands when suddenly he fell and couldn't get up. Elisa didn't let anyone approach him, and together with Sarah, they escorted Larry to the car. Many assumed that the lawyer was hiding some illness from the public because, up until then, the always active and athletic Larry looked as if he was on the verge of death. As it turned out, that was indeed the case. In Sacramento, no one knew what had happened to Larry because nobody could see him. Everyone found it odd, but Elisa claimed that he was too ill, and she was trying to protect him from any additional infections. Since Larry didn't have a partner who could take over the business, his wife handled everything. She didn't have the right to be a lawyer, but her sharp mind and experience in the firm allowed her to handle things quite well. In mid-September, she even had to hire another assistant, Ginger Miller, and in October, another employee appeared. This time, a very special one. Her name was Haley Jordan, and she was Elisa's 17-year-old daughter from a previous marriage. Although Elisa always reluctantly talked about her past, her friends were shocked to find out that she had a daughter. Nevertheless, the girl quickly became part of the team. After several weeks passed without Larry showing up, his children tried to see him, but their stepmother simply didn't allow it. She claimed that their father had no desire to calm them down. They didn't like it, but there was little they could do. Then, about a month after the incident at the show, Elisa told her friends that Larry had gone away for good. He had moved to another country and filed for divorce. Friends found this very strange. Larry's children found it even more strange. They were convinced that Elisa was lying and hired a private detective, but their search was unsuccessful. At the same time, Elisa and her girls didn't stop having fun. They spent so much that even Ginger became concerned that things were getting out of control. Finally, in November 2001, Ginger couldn't take it anymore and reported Larry's disappearance to the police. However, the police couldn't do anything because his wife refused to confirm it. Then, after the new year in 2002, when Larry had been missing for several months, Elisa surprised everyone once again. She closed the law firm and disappeared. On February 5, 2002, employees of the San Juan Vineyard contacted the San Joaquin County Police. They were weeding the grape plantation when they noticed vultures circling something. Upon closer inspection, they found a human leg sticking out from beneath the ground. When the police and forensic experts arrived at the scene, they carefully unearthed the body of a man. It turned out to be Larry McNabani. The autopsy revealed disturbing details of the murder. The grave was new, but Larry had died several months earlier, and he had been killed with a lethal dose of horse tranquilizer. The unusual method of murder reminded one of Larry's friends of something interesting, so he called the police. Elisa had once inquired if it was possible to kill someone using this tranquilizer. "Kill a horse?" he asked. "No, a person," she replied. The man had initially thought it was a joke, but now it didn't seem that way to him. The police didn't find it funny either. After nearly 5 months of disinterest in the case, investigators finally became intrigued by Elisa McNabani. They were afraid that she had become a victim herself, as no one knew her whereabouts. However, the circumstances of her disappearance were quite intriguing. Friends of the family revealed that Elisa had adopted a new persona. She had drastically changed her hair color and lost weight. Significant weight loss can alter one's facial appearance. Along with the new hair color, it suggested that Elisa might have been preparing to flee. Determined to uncover everything they could about her, the officers ran her name through various databases. The results shocked them. They thought there must be some mistake. They checked her name again and got the same result. There was no driver's license, no social security number, no hint of a woman with that name. Elisa McNabani simply did not exist. Not giving up, the police obtained her marriage certificate from Reno, Nevada, and learned that Elisa's maiden name was Elizabeth Barash, and she had been serving time in a Florida prison. The woman in the prison photo, however, bore no resemblance whatsoever to the fugitive. So who was she, really? Finally, the police caught a break. Elizabeth Barash recognized Lauren Renee Sims Jordan when they showed her a photo. Elisa McNabani was, in fact, Lauren Renee Sims Jordan, and the women had met while incarcerated in Florida. A check of Lauren Sims' name yielded 113 pages of information on her police records. Her list of fraudulent schemes, scams, and thefts seemed endless. Over the course of her career as a con artist, she had assumed 38 different identities. Lauren had been married 3 times and had 2 children. Between 1989 and 1992, she had been in and out of prison frequently, seemingly unable to stay within the bounds of the law. For example, once released on parole, she violated the terms and attended a hockey game where she ran into her parole officer. At one point, while under house arrest, Lauren simply cut off her electronic ankle bracelet and, taking her 8-year-old daughter with her, fled to Nevada. When the police examined Larry McNabony's documents, particularly the reasons for the revocation of his attorney's license in Nevada, they discovered that it was indeed Lauren who had embezzled money from the trust account. On March 1, 2002, an arrest warrant was issued for Lauren Sims, noting that she may have altered her appearance and was traveling with her daughter, Haley. A reward of $10,000 was offered for information about her whereabouts. 3 weeks later, Lauren was apprehended in Florida. Now going by the alias Shane Ivaroni, Lauren had settled in the state with her daughter and resumed her schemes. It was actually one of her daughter's friends who turned her in for the reward. Interestingly, Lauren did not resist arrest at all. Perhaps she had grown tired of that life, and the thrill of her cons had been one of the driving elements behind her actions. While California prepared the extradition documents, Florida police diligently interrogated Lauren. But even under pressure, she didn't break. For 2 weeks, she stubbornly claimed no involvement in the murder. Then she shocked everyone by writing a 3-page confession in which she detailed how she and Sarah had planned and carried out Larry McNabony's murder. Remarkably, in Larry's death, she blamed Larry himself, stating that he had been controlling and didn't allow her to freely spend his money. So, together with Sarah, they decided to get rid of his constant control. They began slowly poisoning Larry by gradually adding tranquilizer to his system. Elisa explained that on the morning before the equestrian competition, they spiked his coffee with tranquilizers. When he collapsed unconscious at the racetrack, they took him back to the hotel and administered even more of the drug. In reality, the women had been poisoning him for several days, and when everyone thought he had simply overindulged again, Larry was in agony and slowly dying. When the next day the women put the suffering Larry into a wheelchair and placed him in a car, he was still conscious but unable to escape. The women drove the car to Yosemite Park, scouting for the perfect spot to bury their victim. Sarah calmly began digging a grave, even though Larry was still alive. However, Lauren couldn't bury him alive, so they put the man back in the car and drove away. Sarah Dutra later confessed that on the way back he kept begging for water, and Lauren gave it to him. She also poisoned the water. Upon returning home, the women waited until Larry became unconscious, after which they placed him in the garage refrigerator and sealed it shut with duct tape. For the next 4 months, while Lauren, Sarah, and their friends lived off Larry's money, he lay in a garage refrigerator sealed with duct tape. Then, at the end of December 2001, when the money was running low, Lauren decided it was time to disappear. She buried Larry on a vineyard as a sign of respect for his love of wine. They gave the refrigerator to a friend of the family. Lauren gave a farewell gift to Sarah, buying her a red BMW, and she bought herself a red Jaguar. Then, on March 31, 2002, just before her extradition, Lauren shocked everyone one last time. Determined to spare her children the ordeal of witnessing their mother's legal battle, she left life on her own terms. Lauren died as she had lived, maintaining control over herself. In her cell, she left a note for her lawyer asking him to sue the prison for not stopping her. She requested that the money she saved be given to her children. However, this endeavor was unsuccessful. Haley was not involved in the crime and returned to her grandparents. The trial of Sarah began in 2003, initially charging her with first-degree murder. She claimed that Lauren, whom she knew as Elisa, had threatened and manipulated her, forcing her to participate in the crime. However, Haley, who testified in court, stated that Sarah was never afraid of her mother. Lauren's confession, on the other hand, stated that Sarah's role was not secondary, and it was she who administered the lethal dose of tranquilizer to Larry. Still, some jurors partially believed Sarah and found her guilty of voluntary manslaughter. The judge sentenced her to 11 years in prison. Sarah served almost 8 years and was released in 2011 at the age of 31. Indeed, it's an incredible story that truly makes us question how well we know the people around us. Larry McNabony, the brilliant lawyer, took pride in his courtroom prowess, and he meticulously studied every case he worked on. But when it came to his own wife, with whom he spent 6 years, he never realized that she was a con artist who had once simply cut off her electronic ankle monitor and fled to Las Vegas. Larry McNabony probably never even knew his wife's real name, let alone that she would become his murderer.